Good morning, everyone. So my name is Nina Murphy. I'm the Strategic Planning Manager at the Hauraki District Council. So today we're going to talk you through the Draft Wharekawa Coast Community Plan and talk about how you can give your feedback. So we also have on the line Simon Bendel from Traverse Environmental, and I'm going to hand over to him now to just take you through the plan.
Thanks, Nina. Kia ora, everybody. Simon Bendel. So I'm an environmental planner by background and training, but spend most of my time these days working on projects like this. And I've been involved with this project since it started back in late 2019. So it has been a long journey to get to this point. There've been a lot of people who put a lot of time into this. So I really want to acknowledge particularly members of the community panel that supported this work. And the diagram on the screen right now kind of shows the overall journey of what we're working through here, starting with the community panel that we formed back in 2019, leading through now to the draft community plan, which is the subject of this presentation. And we'll take you through what happens next in a couple of slides ahead of here. So I will just touch briefly on the work of the panel, which I've just mentioned. They began a few years ago. There was, I think, 15 or so people involved right across the Wharekawa Coast. They put a lot of hours into this. They compiled all of their outcomes into this report, which they completed in July last year, and presented that to the councils for acceptance. Their report is available online, so I'd encourage you to track it down and have a read if you haven't already. It describes the process they took, what tasks they set for themselves, and how they approached those tasks, the advice they received, and reports they relied on. And really the key outcome is that they have presented over 100 recommendations for the councils, spread across 5 key themes. And in large part, those recommendations relate to actions that councils can take to respond to the risks from natural hazards, particularly river flooding, coastal erosion, and coastal inundation, but also actions that councils can take to move the community forward in terms of more positive growth and improvements to really enhance what people love about this coastline and perhaps work on some of the things they don't like so much. So the next slide, I'll talk a bit about where we stand now. So the council's received this report from the panel last year, and since then have been considering those 100 plus recommendations, looking at how they can pick those up, which ones they can pick up and implement, how they might be paid for, who might lead them, all those practical considerations, and have compiled all of that work into this, the draft Wharekawa Coast community plan. Think of this as the council's response to the community's recommendations. So in terms of how the council's plan has been structured, it has picked up those key themes from the community panel and reflected those directly into this plan, and that forms the bulk of how the plan has been structured. The council then looked at those 100 plus recommendations and have picked out just over 20 of them as what the council has seen as those key strategic actions that it wants to focus on and pursue. They've done that through a combination of taking advice from the community panel on what they see as the most critical actions, but also the council's own view on what actions should be prioritised to move forward with. So you'll see in the middle of the plan those key actions outlined in a bit of a structured table which shows the action itself, who's going to lead it, how it will be done, when it will be done, an indicative cost, and then how will we know if we've succeeded with that action. So really keen on your feedback on whether we've got that right. Have we picked out the right key strategic actions? That's a key part of feedback we're looking for. The remainder of the recommendations from the panel have not been lost, however. They are sitting in the appendices to the draft plan. The idea is that we'll leave that as almost a parking lot to review and work on over time. We may bring some of those actions forward as the priorities are completed, but certainly there's been no actions that the panel have recommended that we've lost in this process, and those are all sitting in the appendices for your review. So next couple of slides, I'll talk about some of those key actions that councils have picked up from the panel and proposed to implement and run with. The first is river and catchment management. So this was a huge focus for the panel. They worked closely with the councils on looking at over 20 watercourses along the coastline and working out some really practical and straightforward things that could be done to reduce the flooding risks from those watercourses. Those are things like drain clearance, river mouth clearance, planting, that sort of thing. In combination, it's a reasonably significant package of work for the coastline. The councils are proposing that they pick up that work package as recommended and seek to secure some funding for it through rates and implement that. So that's a key proposal that's being put forward, and we're keen on your feedback about that. On the next slide is focused on the more coastal side of the hazards the panel considered. And again, these are recommendations that have been picked up by the councils directly from the panel. And this presents the panel's recommendations for long-term coastal hazard adaptation pathways for each of the 5 compartments along the coastline. There's a lot of information on those, so I won't run through all of it, but the key thing to note here is that for each compartment, there's a short, medium, and long-term series of actions that have been recommended to increase resilience to these coastal hazard risks. The concept here is that you focus on the short-term actions initially, and then you monitor for change to understand when you might need to move to the next step in the pathway, and if that next step is still the right step to take. So it's meant to be adaptive and responsive to how real-world conditions might change over time. And we're keen on your thoughts on those. So that's the brief high-level summary. I hand back now to Nina to take you through the recap and what happens from here.
Thanks, Simon. Okay, so I'm just going to talk to you briefly about consultation on the plan, the next steps, and then implementation. So as you can see, where we are now is we're at the draft community plan, and we're really keen to get your feedback on the plan. We want to know things like, have we got it right? Is there anything we've missed out? Have we prioritised the right actions? What do you think about the coastal adaptation pathways? So these are very long-term pathways over the next 100 years. So we're really keen to get your thoughts on those. We also want to know about funding. What do you think about funding these actions? That's really important too. So we do have feedback forms online, which you can go in and fill in, or you can download a form, print it out and fill it in as a hard copy. So feedback closes on the 27th of October on the draft plan. So once the feedback has closed, we will be collating all the information that we receive, and the joint working party will be considering that feedback and then possible changes to the plan. So they will then make a recommendation to the 3 partner councils to adopt the plan, and that's likely to be at the end of this year. So all going well, if the plan is adopted, then we come to the implementation of the actions. So this is done through a number of ways and through a number of different mechanisms that the councils have. So where the actions can be done through existing budgets and projects, like business as usual, then that can go ahead straight away. But where it might be a new project or an increase in budget, then councils need to use the long-term plan. There are other mechanisms as well, such as annual plans and the district plan. But it's important to know that the long-term plan is the key next step. The long-term plan is where councils outline all their activities over the next 10 years, so all the projects, services, and how they will be funded. So it's quite good timing. Councils are currently preparing their next long-term plan, and we'll be consulting on these next year. So in the long-term plan is where you'll see the impact on your rates of these actions, and you will have another opportunity to provide your feedback on those. So please give us your feedback now. On the screen there, we have the email address our website. You can also give us a call. You can drop us a letter and just let us know. So we look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.